Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome me back to the channel because it's been like 9 days since I posted a video. Tisk, tisk, tisk. I definitely don't want to repeat that, but it's been a crazy, really it's been a crazy few months, but the last couple weeks have been nuts, you know, as far as travel, because I got back, really not the last couple weeks, the last month. Got back from a doozy over at Lake Eufaula, Oklahoma, and then got back to Tennessee. Ended up getting COVID while I was home for the week for the first time, which is, you know, I never thought I'd actually get it. I had thought that I had dodged all the bullets, but ended up getting sick that week. And then we ended up, you know, after we were done with you know, resting and getting better with that, we did go up north and ended up going to our place in Connecticut. And then after that, we were there for like a week and a half, and then of course went to Orlando for ICAST, flew down there for a few days, then came back, had a quick turnaround, had kind of something weird happen, which I actually tried to post several update videos for my practice at the St. Lawrence River, but I ended up giving up because the reception was just terrible there, which is part of the reason why I wasn't able to get my videos out, because at the campsite that I was at, I had like no reception at all, so couldn't get out any videos. But just kind of update you guys, after I got back from ICAST, the day I was on the flight coming back to Hartford, Connecticut, ended up getting something weird on my leg, and this is what it looks like right now. It was actually on both sides, so it's not like a, you know, brown recluse bite, I don't think, but I mean, it's healing nice now, but you should have seen it in the beginning. It was pretty nasty. And ended up having like a fever with it and all that stuff. Missed the first day of practice and the second, you know, a good portion of the second day of practice. But I had to go, I got up to Messina after missing the first day because I was like, I just got to rest. And ended up going to the urgent care up there. They turned me away. They said that this is too advanced. You have to go to the emergency room right now. So ended up going to the emergency room and spent, you know, the entire night there. Well, not the entire night, but all the way to 1 o'clock in the morning. And then finally got back to the campsite. And so had a weird thing happen. You know, I still don't know exactly what it was. Maybe it was like some poison ivy or something that just took a little bit of time to react. Maybe I got some kind of flesh-eating virus from some other country, you know, coming back from ICAST. I don't know what it was. They don't know what it was. We did blood work and had IVs in me and all that stuff. So we still don't know what it is, but it is healing nicely, and that's all I care about. It still looks pretty bad though. But anyways, so then we fished the St. Lawrence River. If you guys kept up with that event, you know how that went. It didn't go too well for me. I've now had 3 stinkers this season. This is and that's the most like triple-digit finishes I've had ever in a season. So not stoked on that, but learned a lot. Learned a lot at the St. Lawrence River, and really, if I put it in perspective, I have to put things in perspective when they don't go right. The fact that I've only weighed 2 bags of all smallmouth. I've only weighed 1 bag in my career that was all smallmouth, to my knowledge. And there may be another bag floating out there that I forgot about, but at the, no, 2 bags, because at Lake Erie a few years ago, when I was running from Sandusky all the way up to Anchor Bay in Lake St. Clair, 95 miles each way, I strictly caught smallmouth for the first 2 days, and then the third day I caught largemouth in Sandusky Bay. So, with that being said, I don't have a lot of experience with Great Lake smallmouth. You know, I've got very limited experience, but you know, I've kind of slipped by, you know, and have made checks pretty much the majority of the time when I go north. But before fishing Sandusky Bay in 2021, I had only fished Champlain for the northern swings. And so Champlain's completely different because you can go for largemouth and still do well. And so I always seem to go for largemouth and maybe throw a couple smallmouth in the bag just to kind of sweeten the pot a little bit. And but because I never really targeted smallmouth, I'm just not as good at the brown fish up north. But this last tournament, I feel like I'm learning a ton. You know, obviously had a little bit of a shortened practice. That's no excuse. Still had 3 days of practice. Okay, so I should have been able to find something. So not an excuse. The leg really didn't hinder me other than the fact that it was super painful and, you know, it was hard getting around. But really, once I got up on the front deck, I can't use that as an excuse either. The thing that I found at the St. Lawrence River was the fact that number one, I felt like my practice was really fractured. So like I had planned to go to Messina and figure out something in Messina to stay close. And so I really put a lot of energy into Messina, but then soon found that it just really wasn't happening up there. At least I couldn't figure it out. And so ended up pulling the plug and went down to Clayton to practice. And I did that every single day. I'd start in Messina, really try to make it work, and then I'd run down the Clayton. So I never really got anything going on any portion of the river. I did end up, you know, catching some fish on some deep rocky humps. You know, you look on your Navionics map, there are a ton of rocky humps in the like Chippewa Bay area, you know, even in Clayton, all that area that's closest to the lake, that has a lot of rocky humps out there. You know, just rises in the bottom where it's really, really rocky, big boulders, things like that. And so I ended up, you know, catching some fish in practice. It was fairly consistent, but I only caught like 1 4.5 pounder, and then the rest were like 2.5s. But I only had 3.5 hours to do it. And it seemed like every single hump that I came to, I caught some fish. So when the tournament started, I had two choices. I ended up, you know, I could either go up to Messina. I had some shallow, flat smallmouth up there, but still wasn't sure about the size or how many were up there. And then after those shallow, flat smallmouth, there really wasn't a whole lot else that I liked up there. Okay, so I'd be stuck. If that shallow flat didn't work out, I didn't have much else going on. There was some current seam things going on and that kind of thing, but it still wasn't, there wasn't a lot of things going on for me up there. So I decided, you know, seeing as that there was, I felt like I barely scratched the surface on the rocky hump deal, you know, fishing 35 to 45 feet of water with a drop shot and the Z-Man trick shots. I figured, you know what, I'm just going to mark a ton of these 35 to 45 foot humps in that Chippewa Bay area, and I'm just going to run them. You know, I'm just going to run those all day, and surely I'm going to have a great opportunity at, you know, a good bag, you know, have at least 4 opportunities of fish, 4+, which is what you need. And so I was pretty positive that that was the way that the day was going to go. And I really only rigged up a drop shot, which ended up being one of my first mistakes. Turns out that day I fished all day, not catching any size at all. Catching plenty of fish, I'm throwing keepers back, and I'm just not seeing any size at all. And then at noon, I'm like, I better start keeping some of these little keepers. And I ended up going to the bank once, casting a chatterbait at a dock, and lost a 5-pound smallmouth. And then ended up losing like a 3-pound smallmouth over by Waddington by the ramp on a current seam. And that was the day. I ended up coming in with 4 fish after releasing all those little fish. They still wouldn't have done any good. You know, even if I caught that 5 and that 3, I'd still only have about 15.5 pounds or so. So it still wouldn't have been a very good day. It actually would have been pretty poor. I would have been in the 80s, 90s, somewhere like that. but I only came in with 4 for like 7.15 or something like that. So rough day. And then the second day I was just like, shoot, I love fishing largemouth. I'm gonna go largemouth fishing first. And I caught my limit in like 10 minutes on a chatterbait. It was really, really fun. But you're talking about small fish. You know, I didn't have enough time to go find like the key stretches of largemouth, you know, banks, and know where there's some bigger largemouth, because there was some toads weighed in at that event. And there's some guys that I think finished in the top 10 with heavy bags of mostly largemouth. Maybe not the top 10, maybe the top 15 and 20 for sure, because I saw those bags and they were over 20. But yeah, ended up catching, what did I catch? 15 pounds, something, 15 something, the second day, and caught most of them, on a chatterbait. Ended up catching one on a Ned rig and I think one on a hair jig. Yeah. A marabou hair jig. That was kind of fun because I haven't done that a lot. But yeah, so stinker of a tournament, you know, and the reason why I wanted to do this video is I wanted to kind of share with you guys some of the things that I learned. All right. So the number one thing that I learned that I thought I had got figured out, because, you know, one thing I like about going up north is that you don't have to get too crazy as far as lure selection. So it's like, it always seems like drop shots are going to be a winning technique in smallmouth tournaments. And obviously it still played a huge role. But I think this year, and I heard it from several anglers that did well, this year the drop shot just didn't play as big of a role for most of those guys as it did in the past. And I think that I was way too, you know, single-minded with the drop shot, because I know guys were catching them on, you know, Ned rigs, jigs, and Carolina rigs too. And so like the first thing I learned is that I need to expand the things that I'm doing with smallmouth. You know, because smallmouth on these Great Lake fisheries, you can catch them shallow, you can catch them ultra deep, and everywhere in between. And I always thought that a drop shot would pretty much catch every smallmouth. But I think nowadays those fish are seeing so many drop shots that you really have to show them something different, which is an obvious principle, because we always are you know, hyper aware of what other anglers are throwing, and we try to avoid that to a certain extent because we know the fish get conditioned. But I kind of took that for granted when it comes to the smallmouth. So that was the first thing I learned, is I need to really have a good selection of baits on the deck, because I feel like I could have got some better bites. I know that those better quality fish were in those areas that I was fishing. I think that they just passed up that drop shot. And I also think that I was single-minded in my color selection, because one thing that I noticed was in practice, the gobies were very dark. Okay, so the gobies that I was catching were very, very dark. And so the green pumpkin goby color that I was using with the trick shots was smashing them. It was catching them pretty good. But during the tournament, I was only catching very light colored gobies, and I should have immediately switched to something like the Deal or Goby Bryant, those colors. Goby Bryant's a pretty cool name for a drop shot bait color. But I should have switched a little bit as far as that. All right. The second thing that I learned, and we already kind of talked about it, the second thing that I've learned about smallmouth is that they get super, super shallow. And you've always got fish that are on these shallow rocky flats, or those flats that have a little bit of rock, a little bit of grass, or a little bit of like shell and sand spots, you know, bare spots and a little bit of grass. You know, those areas, even in 2 foot of water, there are big smallmouth that live up there all the time. And so that is a depth zone that I've widely neglected. Even though I'm a shallow water power fisherman, I always tend to like focus on like the kind of 10 to 20 foot range, and I've in recent years learned how to fish like the really deep range, you know, the 30 to 60 foot range, but I've neglected that really, really shallow, flat range, especially around rocks. And you see a lot of really big smallmouth that live up there. You see a lot of small ones too, and it's not like you're gonna hit, you know, a rocky flat or something like that and catch a ton of 5-pounders, but it's a situation where you can go up there and catch 1 or 2 really, really big fish that just live there, and that's their domain. But you can get on a bigger flat, and of course there's a larger population of fish in those scenarios. But the second lesson is don't avoid the 2 to 5 foot range for smallmouth. Pretty much every time I've gone up, that plays. The third thing that I learned, and I learned more than this, but these are ones that I'm just like, I've got to remember all this stuff, is that power fishing tactics, not finesse fishing tactics, so heavier line tactics, play hardcore on these Great Lakes smallmouth. So fishing jigs, I had my co-angler the first day just spanking them on a 1 ounce football jig on 20-pound test, and we're talking about ultra clear water, just dragging it like I was dragging the drop shot. Whenever I'd catch, you know, a 2-pounder, he would catch a 2.5-pounder. And also throwing a drop, or not a drop shot, but a Carolina rig, you know, so heavy line, main line, maybe 12-pound test as the leader. It's a great technique to present a soft plastic bait, such as some type of like craw bait, like the turbo craws or something like that, or a creature bait, anything that looks like either a crayfish or a goby. You know, a Carolina rig is like a really, really big deal up there. And then finally, another power fishing tactic that I've used on the St. Lawrence River the last 2 times for largemouth, but really didn't think much as far as fishing for smallmouth with it, is a chatterbait. Don't tell anybody about this one, because a chatterbait definitely tends to catch some big smallmouth. I saw some really, really big fish this week caught on a chatterbait. Just a green pumpkin chatterbait burned really fast is something that those fish really just gobble up, man. And I caught, you know, I lost that 5-pounder the first day because I took this rod that I've been using for who knows how long. The line was pretty burnt up on it, and I made one cast to this bank and or this dock, and had a 5-pounder come out, smash it, and break off, you know, once it got underneath that dock. Would have got that fish in if I had retied. So that's an important thing to remember. But had that instance, and then I caught my biggest fish on day 2, which isn't saying much. It was close to 4 pounds on the chatterbait too, and another smallmouth. And then I heard some rumblings from some friends that threw a chatterbait and caught some really, really big fish and had some really big bites. So don't be afraid to throw, you know, bigger power fishing tactics with heavier line for these smallmouth, because these fish are constantly seeing 6-pound test, drop shot rigs, little tiny baits, all that jive. And then you've got, you know, these bigger baits that get neglected, and then when guys start throwing them, the fish gobble them up, because I mean, these smallmouth are eating some pretty big gobies down there. So but anyways, those are just some of the things that I learned this trip up there, that I know will serve me well the next time I'm up there. And I'm just gonna keep on learning, man. There's so much to the smallmouth game, but it is something I'm super passionate about. I love those brown fish. They are just the only word to use for a nice, fat, you know, a Great Lake smallmouth is absolutely perfect. They are the perfect fish. They really are. They're the perfect sport fish. My buddy Braden Rakes, he said it the best. He said, these are ocean fish. It's insane how like crazy the fights are with a big Great Lakes smallmouth that just lives in that current all year round. So anyways, I really look forward to going back up. Another thing that I need to say right now is I just watched the weigh-in for the La Crosse, Wisconsin invitational tournament, and one of my best friends on tour has been Matt Steffen, and he won today. And not only did he win that event, he gets to go to the Red Crest, and he qualified for the BPT. So big shout out to my buddy Matt Steffen. Congratulations, my friend, and congrats to the whole Steffen clan. I'm so happy for you guys. And but anyways, if you guys have any questions at all as far as smallmouth goes, you know, and what I've said in this video today, make sure you drop a comment below. I'm back. I'm going to continue doing videos on a regular basis. I'm so sorry that I've had such bad reception, but I also needed a little bit of a break, you know, a little bit of family time in Connecticut. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, trust the process, and I'm going to see you out on the water.